Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon or this morning, if you're dialing in from the US, for this next instalment from our Ask Me Anything series. I'd just like the last one, just like to remind you that this is being recorded, and that by agreeing to join us today, we'll make sure that you receive a copy of our webinar. I'd like to just introduce my guest today, that is Sam Thomas. Sam's been with Innovate for some time now, and he's kindly offered some time for me to ask him some questions about what he does at Innovate Tax, specifically with the Oracle practice that we have built up over many years. And actually, maybe I should just explain a little bit about us, just in case there's people here that don't know who we are. I like to think that everyone does know who we are that's joined, but for those that don't, I'll just have a quick summary. So established in 2012, we've been building tax automation solutions designed to reduce cost, both at a business level, but also in an implementation level for our customers globally. Predominantly starting in the Oracle space, but it's now expanded into lots of other places, from workflow automation to third-party tax engine determination solutions, master data cleansing automation, and now e-invoicing and VIDA has become something that's really important to us as well. So that's a little bit about us. We're going to go into more detail, so don't worry. And now I'll just go through today's agenda. So this is an Ask Me Anything style webinar, which means we would like some audience participation. If you want to use the Q&A, which is at the top of the screen, to put in any questions, we'll do our best to answer them, Sam and I. We have got some innovators waiting in the wings for any questions which we might not be able to answer straight away. And of course, if we really struggle, we'll make sure we get an answer for you and come back to you after the session, because we feel that questions are incredibly important to us, and that kind of feedback is key. But I've got some questions to kind of guide us through the next half an hour, 40 minutes, based on the topics that I picked out here. But so don't worry, it's not going to be it's just me and Sam in an echo chamber. I've got some ammunition, but let's start. Though I always, just like I did last week, I like to go back to the kind of practice leaders' original start at Innovate and what they had there at that point. And with this webinar in mind, it's all about United States and our US solution. So, Sam, when you joined, what did we have for the US? And give us a bit of a taste of what we've got now.
Right. Well, hello everyone. Thanks, Nathan. So 7 years ago feels like a long time.
I know.
So, yeah. So when I started, so specifically talking about the US, actually back then we didn't really have a lot. To being brutally honest, it was a bit of a gap for us. And just to take it back a little bit to what we do offer kind of our global Oracle clients, is where we've grown as a business and how we've created this little sort of niche in the Oracle ecosystem, is that we've built out 160 countries worth of tax content based off the country's specific legislation that we implement directly in the Oracle ERP to use the native tax engine functionality, which has been really successful for us over the years. But the US has always been a bit of a blind spot potentially, because even though probably the majority, or at least a large number of our clients, are actually US headquartered or US centric with a global presence, we never really had our own solution to offer that used the native tax engine in Oracle. So there was that gap, and obviously now with our new US tax content and solution, that's changed now.
And in-flight, so we call it in-flight, don't we? We forget that people don't know what we're talking about. So just remind everybody. So in-flight is our Oracle-centric tax determination solution that spans 160 plus a couple more countries, based on content, which you quite rightly said, which I think we'll discuss that in a little while, but also how we actually implement that is with some proprietary accelerators, and a methodology and some other bits and bobs that you've basically wrapped up to give to our customers. And now the US part is just as an extension of that in its own right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And it's something, I guess. So because obviously I've been doing it more than 7 years, maybe 8 or 9, and a lot of European companies trusted us because we understood the US at the same time. We literally just kind of doing both ends of the pond, as they say. So we're just working it a slightly different way. But what did you do when back then, when there wasn't anything, we didn't have an option? What would you go to?
Yeah, so I mean, we we there's different options, and it depends on the business, and the client that we're speaking to. But typically we would direct companies towards some of the third party providers, so some of the big tax engines, and we partner with all of those, all of the big well-known ISVs, and we implement their solutions as well. But we would also implement Oracle configuration, but built around other businesses' content. So rates files that you can buy. There's different options you can buy on the market, but we kind of know it's none of them were actually Oracle centric or Oracle specific. So there was a gap that we saw there in that general offering for those businesses that maybe didn't need to purchase a tax engine, and implement some additional software. But the rates files on the market were not Oracle centric, so that's hence why we've built this Oracle centric or US content.
So for those that don't know, so what are the challenges? Oh, sorry, I just spoke over you then, mate. I was just saying, what are the challenges then for sales? What it was? Sorry, let me start again. I spoke over you and then I lost my train of thought, so I'm back. So we're talking about the extension of the US. So what's the challenges that sales and use tax creates over, the United Kingdom? And why has it been so different for Innovate?
So, I mean, the complexity. So the complexity with sales and use tax is vast, right? It is a very different challenge to, say, a VAT regime in Europe or rest of world, and a lot of that is, I think, is just down to the sheer quantity of the rates. There's tens of thousands of sales and use tax rates across the 50 states. Well, there are 45 states where there's sales and use taxes.
Sure.
And those rates can be broken down from state rates, counties, city, district, and further different jurisdictions as well. So if you think about a VAT regime like the UK, it's consistent across the entire country. Whereas in the US, the sales tax, for example, your neighbor in some cases, because they're in a different jurisdiction, even though you might share a back garden, could be paying a different sales tax to you because of the way that the country's divided from a jurisdiction basis. So to manage that in an ERP system, there's a lot of complexity there. And another factor that comes with that, with say VAT, it's fairly static. It doesn't change that often. Rates do change from time to time, but it's probably a bit easier to manage from an ERP perspective. Whereas with sales tax, I think there was something like 1,600 rate changes last year alone.
Right. Okay.
So to manage that without technology, and some businesses do it without technology to assist them, is a real challenge. Then there's lots of other areas, around use tax, and you have to self-assess your use tax. There's lots of different complexities that are different.
So we always say indirect tax is a moving target, but it seems like the US is a very fast moving target as well as consistently moving. And that's where the rate changes is a constant battle.
Yeah, it never stops, especially if you're a business that that operate in all 50 states across, and selling various different products and services across the US. Then it really is a challenge to stay on top of, especially without technology.
Okay, so what do businesses do when they don't have technology to do it? What's the
You'll probably be shocked to hear this, but I have spoken to some tax departments that use Oracle ERPs. So these are not small businesses, right?
No,
you have to be a certain level, revenue to warrant purchasing an ERP like Oracle. And I've spoken to tax departments using Oracle ERP that still Google their tax rates.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, or you know, they might be just doing everything off system, all in Excel, that type of thing. And we still see that. We still see that.
That's absolutely crazy. So,
yeah.
All right. So then, if you say that you've already sold the virtues of automation to your CFO, which is something obviously I'm very close to, quite good at that. But how do you choose the right solution, and how does Innovate, being partners with these ISVs, but also having the US solution that you're describing, how do we help businesses find the right one? Is that's part of it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So what I want to make clear is that the Oracle solution is not going to be right for every business. And we're you know, and there's a few reasons for that I can touch on. But we're always honest and upfront about that. You know, we're always, you know, our position, and it always has been, is finding the right technology for the businesses that we work with. Hence why we partner with, you know, the different tax engine providers. So from the first conversations, really, from a discovery perspective, I'm going to be asking, you know, certain questions to try and determine whether an Oracle-centric approach makes sense for that type of business, or actually, no, perhaps you should reach out to some of, you know, different options out there. But a lot of the time, so there's different factors, and you know, this is very high level, but often I will look at if a business is selling sort of business to customer.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's just take an example like Amazon or something like that, perhaps, you know, selling business customer online, digital sales, etc. That's probably not going to be the right fit for Oracle. And that's down to the location. So that's that
you said the
jurisdictions
thing. Yeah, there you go.
So our file, our content, we provide tax rates for sales tax, being from state taxes, counties, and cities.
Right. Okay.
So if you need any more accuracy, so, you know, sort of like GPS coordinates, that type of thing, then Oracle's not going to be right for you. But there are tax engines out there that can go to that extra level of accuracy.
And that's kind of one of the things I've often heard you say is standard functionality, Oracle standard functionality, because then it's supported and it's not creating a monster you can't manage. That's why you have those levels, or is there another reason?
I mean, it's just for that particular one. I mean, that's just some of the limitations of the native functionality of the tax. Of the actual.
That's the actual ERP. Got you.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we're well aware of, you know, what it can and can't do, and we'll always advise on the right path. But if you're the type of business that is selling, let's say, business to business, and you're fairly static in the sense that you're not growing by acquisition all the time, you know who your customers are, you know what your products you're selling.
Very stable business.
Yes, stable business. Then that might be an ideal candidate for using Oracle, rather than, you know, purchasing an additional piece of technology. So there's different reasons, and you know, there's all sorts of different reasons. Even budget might come into it, where, you know, an Oracle native approach is generally going to be, you know, less expensive, shall we say, than, you know, purchasing, you know, a tax engine product. So that factors as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was going to say, you've kind of already bled into it, so this we might have to double hand a little bit. But I was wondering what the general client journey might be. I assume that they all come to you at a very similar point with a similar situation, and then you say, yes, let's proceed down this path. How does that work?
You assume that, but that's not quite how it goes, unfortunately. So, you know, we get brought into conversations at all different points, really. So, you know, we do a lot of work with partners. So we work with system integrators implementing Oracle.
Of course. Yeah.
And they often bring us into the conversation because, they recognize the value of bringing in, our kind of expertise. So that's a good example where, we're kind of brought in at the early stages. But what we often see is projects that haven't gone very well, let's say, and we get brought in, sort of midway through an implementation where, we have to, kind of potentially steer things back on course. So that's actually pretty common way that we get brought into these types of conversations. And of course we're always in the US as well, so we attend all the big events. We're actually going to be at Cloud World in 2 weeks now in Las Vegas.
2 weeks.
So
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Talking about this topic. So that's where we meet a lot of US centric folks.
And this, I'm guessing, I mean, Cloud World, most businesses are, well, I don't know anymore, actually. I mean, years gone by, Cloud World was very centric to cloud users, but there's a lot of EBS installs that go just to see what the cloud functionality might be like. Yeah. Cloud adoptees, how does that conversation go against an EBS customer looking to migrate to cloud from a US sales news tax perspective?
It's a different conversation, I'd say. The cloud adoptees, it depends where they've come from. Are they coming from a different ERP system, or something else? If they're coming from the sort of legacy R12 Oracle, then that's can be trickier, because what we tend to see in that environment is it's been heavily customized.
Yeah, they're established as well. They're they've been doing things in a way for a long time, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. So and what we see happen is that R12 tends to get heavily customized by some businesses, and it makes it very difficult to adopt cloud. And there's you have to essentially adapt your processes to the ERP.
Yeah.
In cloud, which is a slightly different approach. But in terms of the actual inherent functionality of the tax engine in both options, it's pretty similar. Behind the scenes, it may look and feel a little bit different from a user perspective, but actually the tax engine works in very much the same way. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, I assume as well you've got, well, I know we've got some customers already, but they kind of share their war stories, don't they? And they'll say, they'll share with one another in the community that we did this with Innovate and we got that out the other end. So that's that kind of word of mouth, I guess, is probably another way of, and that's a pretty good reference site for anybody, right? Any stories you can share in there about businesses looking to adopt, have adopted, or any of the choices they made?
What specifically about moving to cloud, or?
No, sorry, about adopting the InFlight US solution.
Well, yeah, I mean, so we've had, it's a fairly new solution, right?
Yeah.
The rates content. So we've one that springs to mind is actually about the amount of money that we've saved that business just on license costs, because they came from a one of the well-known software tax engine providers.
Right. Okay.
And their kind of contract came up to an end, and they thought, well, let's have a look what's out there. Can we actually do this in Oracle? And they've got a pretty strong IT team as well, who thought they could do a lot of the work themselves. But that's a different story. But yeah, but actually, since we implemented our solution, I think from start to finish within 3 months. And the amount of money, they've commented on the amount of money that they've saved purely from licensing costs. So moving towards our solutions has been a big help to them, and there's been no loss of functionality by taking our Oracle approach versus what they had previously.
And again, on the flip side of that, we had that customer where they had used native functionality previously, moving to cloud, Oracle Cloud. The same functionality wasn't there. They went to buy a third-party tax engine, but they used our stuff for the use tax. So they actually broke it down to save themselves a bit of money. So we kind of enabled that one.
Yeah.
There's a few. I mean, there's that I don't know how many. I don't know what we can say and what we can't say, but there's a few businesses that have founders. And I guess I was going to ask about the typical hurdles you jump through to get your message, the use tax, the sales and use tax message across. I can think of a few hurdles already, but what springs to mind for you?
Yeah. Well, there's different ones, and then I think specifically for the sales and use tax element, and this is a small one that we can overcome quite quickly, is actually the fact we're British.
Yeah.
Just have it, just our our accents, we do understand sales and use tax. There's a little bit we have to overcome there, but I think hurdles that I've seen. So when we're talking about an Oracle centric approach, you have to engage the IT team of the business.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
typically we speak to tax people because we understand their challenges that they face. But then because it's the Oracle ERP, it's going to be owned by IT. Typically, that's also where the budget sits for any kind of technology investments or any changes. And it's always, not I say always, but it can be a bit of a battle to convince the IT department to allow a business like Innovate to come in and make changes to the ERP. And I think it's because there's a bit of protectionism in there as well from IT teams. They it is their, if they're doing something native, it's their job to have set it up. And if there's people coming in providing extra scrutiny, you can get a bit of pushback. So that's something that I face quite regularly. But generally, once we get into conversations, that we can overcome that. But that is a barrier quite often, is overprotective IT teams. There seems to be less scrutiny if you buy something else and just integrate it. So there's that. I've had some really weird and wonderful stories to tell, probably. So to give you one example, this very well-known social media company, we were about to sign on the dotted line to do a project with them, similar actually to what you just described. It was an AP, so a use tax project, but with global in scope as well. And about to sign about to start work, and then a week later, all of the stakeholders that we had dealt with for over 5 years had left the business because
I know which one you mean,
of a takeover by a very well-known person. So thankfully that doesn't happen very often. But one thing that I do think is a bit of can be a bit of a hurdle is, and if there are any tax people listening to the webinar, perhaps this is a bit of advice I can offer, is understanding your own, how you buy technology as a business. So this has changed over the sort of last 7 years that I've been doing this. Like tax people are now very technology savvy, or they're certainly getting that way, because it's very difficult, you can't do this job really now without some sort of technology in the mix. But I think historically tax people were seen as quite into the spreadsheets, into Excel, maybe potentially a little bit nerdy. Listen to our Tax People Aren't Boring podcast. It's not true, but that's maybe the perception.
Nice plug.
Thank you. But that's maybe the perception. But what I've and this literally happened to me last Friday on a call with a potential client, where the tax department wanted to purchase, wants to move forward with a purchase, but actually pretty naive in terms of their own business and how they buy. And what is the
Right.
procurement? So who do you speak to? Who do you have to bring in? What stakeholders do you have to bring in? And that has caused problems in the past. You get to the point where you've found the right solution, or you think you have, and then other people get brought in and they've got their own agendas, and things can get derailed in a sense. So a bit of advice to any tax people looking at engaging a vendor like Innovate, is to actually try and get an understanding of what steps do you have to go through as a business to get budget and to get sign off to purchase technology.
We mentioned last week about the rise of the tax technologist and their role in this nowadays. Do you have a view on this in terms of are they a hurdle? Do they help? I don't want to put words in your mouth from what we spoke about last week, but I'd like your view.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's not actually a role that I've seen that much in the US.
Oh, okay. Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, but maybe that's just me. But the conversations, the businesses that I've been speaking to that have this type of role, I think that it's a really important step in the sort of the right direction. I don't think they represent hurdles actually.
Okay.
Generally, from what I can understand, is that their role is trying to understand what their business needs from a tax perspective and how that gets delivered into the technology, whatever they choose. But from what I've seen, there are no tax technologists in-house that know all of the different options out there, or fully understand the functionality of Oracle or SAP or whatever platform they're using. And often they tend to be of tax people who've done some setup of their ERP native, whatever it is, in the past, and then now I like technology, it's interesting, and then now they're a tax technologist, but that doesn't mean that they fully understand what the options are and what so it's a fairly new role, I think, but it is a step in the right direction, and it's a link between the IT department and the tax department, which has always been missing, because they can butt heads, or in that has happened in the past.
It's funny you should say it that way around, though, because I've often thought, I guess I've seen it. Buying a tax engine in the US is just natural. It's because the complexity you've said about the rates, the amount of change, the jurisdictional compliance, especially those businesses trading B2C or marketplaces or having lots of different customers. So it's very natural to buy a tax engine. In Europe or rest of the world, actually, it's the complete opposite. And so the IT teams based in Europe are more like, right, okay, we should know how to configure ERP, and we have a blockage there because we're like, you said it. We go in and say, there's a better way of doing this, and we can create automation, and we can enable this a lot quicker. We get a bit of pushback there. And in the US, you're saying, well, actually, you might not necessarily need a tax engine. If you do, if we have that threshold test and we feel that you do, we can help you. But you actually might be able to do things natively. You get resistance that side as well. So there's kind of double hurdles to go through. Mm-hmm. So how do you negotiate this? Like, how do you actually walk through this without people just putting up red flags straight away and say, well, both sides just go, well, no, there's no place for you here.
I think it's yeah, and I do agree with that. I do agree with that. I think on the US side, it's actually education. It's not. It's tax. As you said, it's the home of the tax engine. It's very natural to go out and look for a third-party product to buy. It's almost. And I even think in university courses they use tax engines in the US, right? So from sort of day one, it's kind of, that's what you do. And what we've seen and what we've come up against in the US and even advisors advising on technology will say that Oracle can't do a lot of the stuff it can do because they don't fully understand it.
Yes.
So the first,
absolutely.
Yeah. So and that's not just a US problem. That's a global thing. But I think a lot of it does start from the position of, did you know that you could actually potentially do this in Oracle, and these are the ways how. And as I said before, we're always upfront and honest about what a business should be using. So we're not just going to say, okay, yeah, we've got an Oracle solution, you should use that. That's never the approach we take. So if we start from that position of being, upfront and honest, and providing that value straight away, then we can kind of overcome some of those red flags.
Yeah, I think we often say we position ourselves as Switzerland, don't we? Where we generally are agnostic. We try and find the best cost-effective path to help a business proceed forward from whatever starting point they're in, to automate indirect tax determination and the data surrounding it. And that's been, that's kind of been our modus operandi for a long time. I guess at that point, when you've kind of discussed their requirements and then really thought about, well, what are these guys going to need, then there's a further choice around what ISV to point them in the direction of.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll probably be factors that influence that decision as well. And also, if it is a native solution which could work for that customer, do they have the IT infrastructure, the resources to maintain it? I think one of Andrew's very much around this idea of, you don't want something that's just unmanageable, like unmaintainable. And we've tried to strip that back as much as we can. And we'll come on to Twilight shortly, but like that kind of area to as a tax professional or an IT professional to land on and get the help they need to keep things going. Trying to convey that in a quick way when someone's up against it with time pressure, they've got a job to do, plus they're being asked, well, what tax solution are you going to need when we adopt this new product? Or I think you were saying earlier about it only really becomes a problem from a business that isn't going through a finance transformation if they get audited, and like the pressure that can bring.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's never usually like a very calm discussion, is it? So one of the hurdles, I guess, is timeliness. Like we never get a good runway at these things.
No, you're quite right. There's always, everyone. I would assume everyone wants the best piece of technology they can have for their business, but whether the business is willing to,
but they want that to make their life easier. It's not like we have this intrinsic, like, I've got to do the best for the business. Everyone's got to be a little bit selfish. They don't want difficult end of period closes and loads of scrutiny and no audit defense position. And again, that's something Andrew is incredibly hot on, is creating that ability to, if that audit comes, you can defend your position with empirical data. I guess that doesn't go.
No, I was just going to say, so for all those reasons, that's why businesses or tax people tend to want the best piece of technology, but that doesn't mean they're going to get budget for it, because it's in those scenarios where they are being audited, or they've been flagged that they have to make a change, is typically when the conversation gets more real, I suppose. Obviously legislation can change that as well, move that forward, but that we do, when it's like you said, it's never a nice long conversation where we it is normally, so there's some pressure,
single step.
there's some pressure somewhere being applied to push things forward generally. But
so let's hypothetically, we've spoken to somebody and we've presented the virtues of automation at the point of transaction on both sales and use, or various combinations of either or. Value acceleration is something I've been working on for quite some time, and I'm trying to make sure we get that kind of messaging right. So I'm putting you on the spot, but how would you go about that? So how from the implementations you've seen, from the proposals we've offered, how do we accelerate our value to customers? Where does that start for us?
Well, I mean, right from the very first conversation, we're gonna be trying to discover and find out what is the right piece of technology. So straight away, we're not looking just sell this solution. So straight away, we're going to be providing value to help the customer find the right piece of technology for their business. But there's quite a lot, and thinking about it from a purely an Oracle centric approach. So
yeah,
a typical, just to explain to people, a typical implementation of the Oracle tax engine, whether that be in the US or anywhere else, will be very manual in the way it's set up. Generally, the partner or whoever's doing the work will work with the tax team. A lot of the work on the tax department.
Right. I was wondering where you're going with this.
Yeah, sorry.
I get you now.
I wanted to
okay.
Just
so
explain,
you mean,
and then
okay.
Yeah, so put all the work on the tax department. We see this all the time. Give us all your scenarios. Tell us what you want. Tell us how you do everything, and then we'll go and build what you've told us to build.
Yes.
And then invariably things get missed. It takes a very long time, etc., etc. That person leaves the business as well. That who set the thing up in the first place, and then the business has no idea how to maintain it or why it was done in the first place. So that's kind of the traditional way we see these kind of native projects going. So to bring it back to Innovate and the value that we bring is we never start from scratch. We have content built, pre-built already. It's there. We refine it always for our clients, depending on the way they use Oracle, the way their tax requirements, etc. We have a delivery methodology and some technology accelerators called Rapid Install to get that config directly into the ERP within it's hours.
It's two parts. It's the pistons of the engine, which is the configuration, and it's the fuel for the fire, which is the content, and they go in together with Rapid Install. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So already we're bringing the implementation time. We're shrinking that down to what we traditionally see. And then it's even the things like, so every project we do is fully project managed. We've got a delivery methodology, it's been tried and tested, hundreds and hundreds of times. And we actually, and this is something we don't really even shout about, to be honest, but we probably should. We've got an internal app that we use called Interrogate that Andrew's team's built, and it does all sorts of stuff. I can't even get my head around some of the things it does, but we use it in projects. We use it in projects to essentially document every conversation that's been had, every decision that's been taken, throughout the journey to get to the end solution. And then that becomes a decision log, and then that we create a document at the end of the project that we give to the client as a standard deliverable, but it becomes part of the tax control framework for the business, so they can fully understand the design, the decisions, why did this get built like this, and you can start to build some robust frameworks around that, and that's that's just a standard thing that we offer. And then also from the support side as well. So we're talking, one of the big
Twilight.
Yeah. So to move on to Twilight, but one of the big differences, I think, with a kind of ISV tax engine software approach is, it's done outside of the system. So it's supported by that provider, it updates, etc., and it's maintained by them. Whereas one of the hurdles that we face, or we see, or maybe that we see with businesses that use Oracle, is that because it's being done within the ERP system, it has to be maintained by the IT team, by the business, which can be complex, and it can be a resource drain, and that's what we see quite often. But we offer a full support and maintenance package. So after any solution go live, we support it. So we take that burden away from the IT team. And we have what we call Twilight, which is a support portal, but it's essentially an online repository. Supportal, yeah. An online repository of user guides, user videos of how to use the solution, which is all pre-built because, we implement this stuff all the time. So it's, we're not building it every time in every project. It's there to be used. Again, this really robust tax control framework for a business, which you wouldn't get if you took the traditional approach of setting up Oracle. and within that supportal, that's where we provide the updated rates content as well. So each month there's a new file to download, really simple process, to put it back into your EIP with all the new rates updates, that have changed over that month. And we even show in the supportal, got to stop saying supportal now. But in the portal, where we actually even show which rates have changed during that time period, just to give extra visibility. But I think the point to your question is that there's so many areas that we bring value, that versus a traditional approach, because we've done this hundreds of times, and we pre-package as much as we can, and bring that to every project.
We haven't actually mentioned compliance tools, and I think that's part of our view. How, if your determination, irrespective of the engine, how do you fit with compliance tools? Where do they come into your conversations if it's an Oracle centric project? Or
they do, and actually we haven't got long left, but actually this is quite, I mean, it's a big topic, but they do factor, and actually it depends. So when I was saying earlier that helping find the right choice in terms of technology, compliance could actually become part of one of those things that I think, actually that's a main driver for them. So I might suggest looking outside of Oracle, because in Oracle there are perfectly good tax reports, and we have our own US tax report as well. But some businesses come to us and say, look, we want automated filing, and that's not something Oracle can do, and that's not something we offer as part of the standard native functionality. So if that's what's driving their agenda, and we've had that before, then we would say, well, actually, perhaps you want to look at another product for that piece, because you can still connect it to the ERP. So you can use the native Oracle EB tax or cloud tax determination, and then build the compliance on top of it. Or a lot of the ISV providers, they do determination and compliance, and have the exemption certificate management tools, etc. Lots of different offerings out there. But so that's why I would say on that. But I mean, it really does depend on what the client is after and how much.
Well, it was kind of a loaded question, because I remember one of our customers years ago was like, we've got a massive issue, determination isn't right, let's go and buy a compliance tool. And then it was like, that kind of okay, that's not really going to help, because you need to have clean data to start with. Garbage in, garbage out gets used quite often, which is still hanging around, that concept, which I think is quite fun that it's still there. But I just wasn't sure whether you introduced the idea, because obviously in the US it's a lot more complicated. And how often do our customers, go out and then buy compliance tool or manage it with the reports? Probably is some metrics we can work on that. I wasn't sure whether that's a thing. So, okay. As we're coming up to the end, if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to whack them in the chat or the Q&A. I've got a couple for you though, Sam. How long does it take to implement? And you can't say how long's a piece of string. Like how long? Like roughly what we say.
That's always my answer.
Everyone wants to know though.
Well, it can be. We did a project about a month ago that took 2 weeks from start to finish.
Okay.
And that's because we've got all those accelerators. We've got and there wasn't. It really does depend. It depends on the client's requirements. It always depends on the client's availability for testing, for the different phases. From our side, we can do things very quickly.
What about? Okay, sorry. You still going?
No, I could go forever on that one, because I always.
This is it. I want to just check, because I'm going to chuck some at you last minute until someone else. I've got a few more. Okay. Destination origin based requirements. Talk to me.
Oh, that's a difficult one to throw.
I mean, does it manage it? Does it manage?
Yes. Yeah. That's to do with more to do with the rules setup. But yeah, our solution handles the different requirements there.
You said there's 45 states that have sales and use tax regimes. Can you name the 5 that don't?
I don't think I can. I'm afraid. I know Montana doesn't, and I'm actually going to Montana tomorrow.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I'm gonna
Oh,
go
you lucky
shopping.
boy.
I know I'm gonna go shopping.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. Okay. What else can I say? There's how interoperable. No, that's just a ridiculous question. I can't ask you that. We actually have had one in the chat though. We might need Laura. Is Laura on? Shall I read this out? It looks good. So, how is the product service mapped to the tax content to make a tax decision? I've worked at a retailer who would have a UPC code that was mapped to a product code. Now we've got Laura in the wings, so if she knows the answer, she will answer. If she doesn't, she won't answer. Oh, hello, Laura.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so it depends. Like if it's within Oracle, we normally use like product categories. So it depends what sort of tax decision you make. So to make it exempt, we have taxable categories that are linked to the product categories. And then the product categories you would link to the product. So then that would be linked to, we would drive exemptions that way. With the actual taxability, that's just driven by the addresses. And with purchasing, again, we would have purchasing categories. So the purchasing category would get chosen on the purchase order, and then that will drive the exemptions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. And actually, the same person that raised the question has actually given us a mnemonic for the states that don't impose sales tax, which is
ODAM.
ODAM. ODAM? ODAM?
Or Nomad.
I read that as ODAM.
Oh, Nomad.
Well, yeah,
oh, Nomad.
Nomad,
Okay.
that's how I remember it.
Oregon, Delaware, Alaska, Montana, and New Hampshire. Wonderful. Thank you, Sam. I do, and thank you, Laura. We appreciate your help at the end there. And Sam, very good. You were put under some pressure, and I do like that. But yeah, much appreciated. The next Ask Me Anything webinar is based on the GCC. So if anyone's listening and they have a requirements over there in the Middle East, please look out for the invitation and share with your colleagues. If you have any questions on this discussion or want some more information, please let us know. You will get a copy of the recording in a week or so's time. And if anybody's going to the Oracle Cloud World event in a fortnight, please get in touch. It'd be great to have a beer or a coffee and talk a bit more about tax technology with you. But that's it from us, and thank you very much.
Thank you.